Hey guys. Okay, so today in reading we covered a lot. Particularly, we read the story When Charlie McButton Lost Power, and we're going to do that here in just a moment. But we also talked about rhythm and cadence in poems. So rhythm is actually how something is said, and cadence is kind of goes along with that. Rhythm and cadence refer to the patterns and sounds in writing and speech. One characteristic of narrative poetry, like this, is that you should be able to pay attention enough to hear how the author uses rhythm to add or to create a mood. For example, a fast-paced rhythm might create an excited mood, or a slow one might create a sad mood or a very slow, somber mood behind it. The fast-paced rhythm in When Charlie McButton Lost Power creates an excited mood in this story, and it can create a mental image of a frantic search for power. The prose uses cadence. Cadence. I can't say the word very well. But it's often used and pronounced as the rhythm of a poem. So again, that narrative poem idea of a poem is different from a story because it uses rhyming words, it uses rhythm, it uses cadence in order to actually get the point of the story across. So listen as I read the story, and then we'll have a few questions scattered throughout the story to go along with it today. So here we go. So When Charlie McButton Lost Power. And then him and his little doggy. And go ahead and switch to our two-page view. Makes it a little easier with you guys. All right. So the start of our story. Here we go.
Charlie McButton had likes and like-nots. The things that he liked involved handsets and bots, computerized games where he battled bad creatures. The things he liked not didn't have blow-up features.
Okay, so talking about how things that he didn't like weren't using power, but those things that he really does like have to use a lot of power. So what are some of Charlie's electronic toys that are like the ones you own? Well, looking at his picture, you probably have a computer because it's probably how you're watching me, or on a phone or some other kind of device otherwise you wouldn't be able to see me right now. But what other kind of devices or objects that use power do you use every day? Very neat, very neat. Yeah, I usually use my phone or computer every day, just like you guys do. But also our cars have power to them. They have a battery in them. That's how they run. So even things you wouldn't necessarily think have batteries actually do.
Then one day a thunderstorm blew into town and brought his tech empire tumbling down. A lightning bolt struck an electrical tower, and Charlie McButton, his whole world lost power.
Uh-oh, not good. All right, so what has happened during a bad storm you've experienced? He lost power in this storm just because something struck the electrical power, the electric tower. Well, what might he have to do? Let's read and find out.
He looked left, he looked right, and his heart filled with dread. The TV, the lights, and his clock were all dead. He jumped to his feet, his lungs gasping for air. The room spun around, and he clung to his chair. He tried to cry, "Help!" but just managed a squeak. The blackout had blacked out his power to speak. Thank goodness his mother had ears like a bat. She came to his room, and she gave him a pat.
Uh-oh. So why are some of the descriptions of Charlie kind of funny? Well, it's supposed to be funny. Remember, sometimes narrative poems will be humorous. It means that they have humor or hilarity included in them. They're supposed to be funny. That's the point of the whole story, is to pull our readers in order to read the story and get entertained. So how might you react to a power shortage yourself? Well, a lot of the time when power goes out, it means that there's a storm. When I was little, I used to have to go to the basement if there was a storm like that, just because of where I lived. But here in Arizona, it might be a little different. All right, so let's go ahead and keep reading.
"Oh, Charlie," she said, picking up on his fears. "The lights will come back when the bad weather clears. You'll have to find something without plugs to play. Read a book, clean your room, sing a song, model clay. Could anything be any duller than clay? Soggy gray clay on a soggy gray day?" He hated the way the clay got under his nails, and how he could only make snowmen and snails.
Now, clay isn't too bad. I actually like playing with clay. It's one of my favorite things to do. Have you ever made anything out of clay before? Oh, yeah? You'll have to post it on Class Joe to show me what it is that you've made out of clay before. All right, it says, how do you feel when you can't do your favorite things? Well, sometimes we have to find different things to do, right? So how does the author create this feeling in this passage? Well, as a reader, we started to feel, oh no, he is out of things to do. He isn't able to find something to do, but he's going to be so bored, right? So drawing back on our own experiences of, oh great, there's no power, means I have to figure out something to do, helps us understand how Charlie is feeling in this story.
He dove for a gadget he'd outgrown last spring. It was handheld, outdated, not much of a thing. But he clutched the old toy like a lifeline that day. See, it ran on one battery. The size? AAA. He flicked the on-off switch to on double quick, but no happy humming sound followed the click. He unlatched a hatch, and his blood turned to ice. The battery is gone from my backup device.
Oh no! Let's see what he does to fix it.
World records were set in the 10-meter dash as away down the hallway he flew like a flash, seeking one battery, just one AAA, that would rescue one boy from a gray day of clay. But just when his search nearly drove him insane, he ran past the bedroom of Isabel Jane. His 3-year-old sister was happily walking a doll back and forth, and the doll, it was talking.
Ooh, maybe he'll find a battery here. We'll have to find out. All right, let's go to the next page.
Now, dolls didn't talk on their own, as a rule. They needed a power source, some kind of fuel. In less than a second, he'd made his decision. Call it bad judgment, a real lack of vision. Somehow his head didn't warn of his folly, and Charlie McButton,
Ooh, let's see what he does.
he pounced on that dolly. He plucked out his prize through the baby doll's dress, and Isabel Jane made a sound of distress. It was just a short walk to the foot of the stair, where resided the McButton time-out time chair. To add to the fun of his term in the seat, Isabel Jane came to play at his feet. And Isabel Jane, the battery queen, had more AAAs than he'd ever seen. They powered her puppies. They powered her clocks. They powered her talkative alphabet blocks.
Uh-oh, so she's got all the batteries. And says, have you ever experienced frustration like Charlie's? Well, yeah, sometimes frustration is part of our lives, right? Like sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm so done with this. Well, let's see how he'll handle it. We're going to have to look at that a little bit more tomorrow, okay? Now we're going to kind of shift gears for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and close my screen there. We are actually going to go on to our vocabulary and grammar and writing section now. So we were talking about sentences today. So the sentence tells a complete thought. It begins with a capital letter and ends with a punctuation mark. An incomplete sentence is called a fragment. So a sentence here, our example, is the lights go out. It tells us, okay, the lights being the object and what they do, which is go out. A fragment does not include a subject or it's missing what it is that it's doing. So suddenly blink on and off. Well, what suddenly blinks on and off? It doesn't tell us, so that means that that one's a fragment. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go through numbers 1 and 2 with you. You are going to have to go through numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 on your own, and then we'll talk a little bit more about these tomorrow. So it says, write the group of words that is a sentence. I'm not going to write it. I'm just going to circle it. For you, I'd like to write it, okay? So it says, the boys make a fort, or can't play computer games. Well, we can ask the question of who here. The boys, it says in the first sentence, makes sense. Uh-oh. The second one doesn't tell us who can't play computer games. That means it cannot be a sentence. So, the boys make a fort is our correct sentence. And please write that here. Okay, number 2 says, played checkers and board games. Or, mom tells stories. Again, we can ask who did all of this. Well, it doesn't tell us who played checkers and board games. I mean, we can assume that it's us, but it doesn't tell us. Ooh, but it does tell us that mom tells the stories. So that means that mom tells stories is our answer here. And again, go ahead and write that sentence here for me. All right, on the bottom section it says, decide whether each group of words is a sentence or a fragment. If it's a sentence, write the sentence with the correct capitalization and punctuation. If it's a fragment, write F. Again, so we're looking for especially to have a correct capitalization, so capital letter, and punctuation at the end, okay? If it has not a complete thought, if it's only a fragment, you don't have to write it out. You can just write S, all right? So go ahead and finish that for me, and then you can go ahead and pause my video, finish it up, and then we'll go on to the next one. All right, guys, so we also talked about our vocabulary for this week, talking about context clues, understanding a word, even if you don't know what the word directly means, but you know what it means in the total of that sentence or that paragraph of the story. We also talked about homonyms. Homonyms are words that are spelled and pronounced the same way, but have sometimes very different meanings. Homographs are words that are spelled the same way, but have different pronunciations and meanings as well, like read and read, two different things. Use context clues or other words around a homonym or a homograph to figure out what the words mean. All right, so it says read the following passage, then answer the questions below. Look for context clues. So I'm going to have you go ahead and read this small paragraph. Okay, so number 1 says, in this passage, does down mean a bird's soft feathers or from above? Well, this is a good time to go ahead and go back and reread to help us remember what this means in context, right? In the actual way that it's being read. All right, so let's go back and find the word down first. So it doesn't appear to be in that first sentence or two. Let's go ahead and keep looking, keep looking. Ooh, is it in here? Is it in here? It's kind of in there somewhere. See? Right down into our midst. Well, Does that mean it's a bird's feathers? Or does it mean it came from above? Well, we're not talking about birds here. We're talking about baseball mitt, aren't we? Yeah, we're talking about baseball mitt. So that means that it would be from above. If it came down, it's coming from above. Good. The word drove has two pronunciations and two meanings here as well. What clues tell readers that the word's pronunciation and meaning are in this passage? Well, we have to think about the context, what it is that's happening around that word. If it says the word dove, like we dove into the dirt because of baseball, then that makes more sense to talking about baseball here. If it was dove, like a bird, it might be a little bit different because, well, it's a bird, not past tense of diving for a ball. All right? Number 3 says, what does that mean in this passage? And how does the context help you? That one you're going to have to answer on your own. And I would like you to answer number 4 as well. It says, how do you pronounce the word read or read in the last line? Okay? That one you're going to have to go ahead and justify, write out your thoughts, what context it is in this case. Okay? So that was our vocabulary review for the day. We also had another page that looked something like this. Had a whole bunch of circles, right? If you were not with us in class today, you're going to have to do this with us tomorrow instead, because there's an awful lot of writing in here, and I don't want you guys getting behind. But this is actually a web. It's a thought web. So we would basically put a main topic here in the center, and we'd put details or other things around the outside that relate to it. Okay? In this case, we're going to start coming up with a topic or an idea for writing a personal narrative about when someone or something might have lost power. During class, I gave an example of my dog and my little sister and my little brother and I were stuck in a storm, and instead of my dog, Kona, disappearing and being afraid of the storm, she decided to save my little sister instead. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and fill those in a little bit later together. We're going to walk through it again tomorrow, so don't worry. But I do need you guys to please, 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 please try to be here tomorrow, so that way we can get that taken care of together, all right? And until then, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.